So we're now ready to begin our program on mindfulness, and I'm going to turn the mic over to Jody.
Hi, so I want to welcome Professor Tim Iglesias from the University of San Francisco. He has taught law full-time since 2002. Since 2010, he's taught a 2-unit contemplative lawyering course in which law students learn mindfulness meditation for stress management and to improve their lawyering skills.
Yeah.
He's enthusiastic about the popularity of mindfulness in the legal profession, but also concerned about how it's presented, which he'll discuss. After receiving his JD with distinction from Stanford Law School in 1993, Tim clerked for the Honorable Stanley Weigel in the Federal District Court of Northern California. From 1994 to 2000, he helped nonprofit developers obtain local land use and funding approvals for affordable housing developments in the face of community opposition. Then he turned to teaching law. He teaches property law, community property, eviction lawyering, a seminar on housing discrimination, and contemplative lawyering. He mostly writes in the area of housing law with focus on affordable housing and fair housing. So without further ado, let's welcome Professor Tim Iglesias.
Okay, great. Well, can everyone hear me? We were having some mic issues. Can you hear me, or shall I do something else?
You got to use them. Yeah, we can't hear you.
Try this. Try.
Does that work?
No.
Is that working?
Is it turned on?
It's turned on.
Oh, that's one.
All right, I have to just be more aggressive with mine. Okay, well, thank you all very much for staying. I understand it's always a little bit dicey at the end of the conference that you want to slip away, so I appreciate that you are the stalwarts that have stayed. So here's what I plan to do. I'm going to give a quick introduction, and then we're going to do a little quick exercise and debrief, and then I'm going to talk about what is mindfulness meditation. Then we're going to do a mindfulness meditation and debrief that a little bit, and then I want to talk about, well, how or why does mindfulness work to do what people claim it does. And then finally, I want to try to make applications to what might be benefits of mindfulness to law practice. Okay. So the exercise I want to do is, briefly, I want to have you just focus on your favorite animal. Or if you don't have a favorite animal, just choose an animal, okay? So, can anyone think, just have an animal that you're intending to focus on, okay? All right, now close your eyes, please. And just focus on your animal. Just keep your mind focused on your animal. Okay, now, please open your eyes. Was anybody actually able to focus on your animal the entire time?
No.
No, okay. That's what I expected, okay? If somebody had said yes, I would want to have them become my guru or something. Because what the idea is that our mind basically does this. Our mind has a mind of its own, if you will. We think in our culture that we're in control of our mind. We think of our mind, we often imagine our mind as it's a computer, and it's just waiting there for us to give it instructions to do this, and then it's going to do it, and then we're in control. But the reality is we're not really in control of our mind all of the time or most of the time. And in fact, it has its own things it's doing, right? And so what is our mind really like? Well, the best image I come up with is like a bubble machine without an off switch, okay? It just keeps coming up with stuff. And we're quiet or we want to be quiet, and it just comes up with stuff. So that's I think what that's really like. And the reason I do this little part beforehand is that mindfulness meditation is sort of based on some assumptions about how the mind works. And what I want to do is make those assumptions explicit to you, and then you can, in your experience, decide if that's true or not. Okay, because none of this is meant to be ideological or trying to force something down your throat. It's about seeing if it is true in your own experience. So this is this is kind of like the assumptions. Okay, that the assumptions are that most of us, most of the time, basically are not. It's really hard to stay in the present moment. Our minds typically go to the past, to that jerk who cut us off on the freeway on the way to work, or to the future, like, oh my gosh, I have that appointment, that meeting, it's going to be stressful, I'm worried about it, or we're trying to multitask, and we're easily distracted, okay? So that's one kind of part. Another part is that we tend to be reactive rather than responsive. We have been taught since we were children, and certainly any of us who have had legal training have been taught to be reactive, like get there, make the judgment, do quick, get at it. And so we have acclimatized ourselves to being reactive rather than responsive to our experience, our internal experience, as well as to what comes at us from the outside. We really have lightning fast reactions to all kinds of things that we experience. And the reactions might come in the form of another thought or a feeling or even a physical reaction, sort of a tick or a blink or a nod or something. So we tend to be quite reactive. And then the third thing is, although we'd like to think of ourselves, and all the commercials that are trying to sell us products are always pretending that we're sort of autonomous, free, deciding at every moment we're making a new choice. But the reality is most of us, most of the time, are pretty habitual about a lot of things. We all know we have habits about how we get up, when we get up, exercise, eating, sleeping habits. But we also have emotional habits and mental habits and conversational habits. And habits aren't bad. In fact, social scientists have clarified very clearly that we need habits. This is the way our mind works. If we don't have habits, it's just too hard to live the day, making every decision anew every day. So we have habits, and a lot of habits are good in the sense that they further our values and who we want to be. But we pick up bad habits too that don't further our values or who we want to be. And oftentimes we're really not that aware of our habits. Okay, so that's kind of those are the assumptions, the basic assumptions behind mindfulness that, as a group of, thoughtful people and educated people, I believe in sort of making clear what my assumptions are before I go into something. And as I said, all of you can test in your own experience whether these assumptions are true or not about how your mind works. Okay, so the question is, so what is this mindfulness meditation? So I'm going to offer a very simple and sort of generally accepted definition, which is that mindfulness meditation is focusing our attention on our breathing to help us be in the present moment in a non-reactive and non-judgmental way. Okay, so I'm going to break that down and talk a little bit about each element of the definition. First, our attention, along with our time, is really one of our most precious resources, if you will, in our life. It's limited and it's valuable. That's why advertisers are willing to pay so much money to grab our attention and to get our attention, because it is valuable. But as we saw earlier, we only have some control over our attention. And as the great American philosopher and psychologist William James once wrote, the faculty of voluntarily bringing back a wandering attention over and over again is the very root of judgment and character. And education which should improve this faculty would be the education par excellence. Okay? So part of what mindfulness is about is trying to help us train our attention so that we have a better capacity to control what in fact we're attending to, paying attention to. So that's the attention part. So in mindfulness meditation, what we do is we deliberately pay attention to the physical act of breathing, and as a means of holding us in the present moment. Okay. So we usually take our breathing for granted because, as I learned once when I did a CPR class, if you're not breathing, you're dead. You can have your heart stop for actually quite a long time and you're still not dead. But if you're stopped breathing, you're dead. Okay. So we take our breathing for granted. It's one of the autonomous parts of our physical system. So I want to sort of take a moment to get you reacquainted with your breath in a sort of explicit way. So if you wouldn't mind, could you all stand up for a moment, please? Okay, so our breathing really has, you may have never reflected on this, but our breathing has 4 parts. The first part is the in-breath, okay? Where we all, just go follow with me, great. Follow with me. So there's an in-breath. Then there's the top of the breath. So that's where our lungs are full. There's that quiet moment before we exhale. So the third part of the breath is the out-breath. Right? And then the bottom of the breath, what it's called the bottom of the breath, is the fourth part. That's that space before we take our next breath. Okay? So the breath really has 4 parts to it. And so you can sit down. That's just a way of keeping you awake. So in mindfulness meditation, we use the breath as a means of sort of giving our mind something to do. Because our mind, as this incessant bubble machine, needs something to do. It needs something to pay attention to. Otherwise, it's just going to do its own thing. And it's going to do its own thing anyway. So anyway, in mindfulness meditation, we use the breath as the way to focus our attention. And you might ask, well, why the breath? Well, it's nothing magic about it. It's just traditionally, it's a good thing to use because it's portable, it's always with us, it's free, we don't have to learn how to use it, we don't even need any special equipment. It's just with us all the time. So the breath is traditionally in many of the traditions that have developed these kinds of meditative practices, focus on the breath. So focusing on the breath, we use it as a way to move us or to hold us in the present moment, or to bring us to the present moment. But as we've learned in the little exercise, we can't stay there very long, or we don't typically stay there very long. The breathing in itself, our intention to stick our attention on the breathing in itself is not sufficient to hold us in the present moment. Okay? So in mindfulness meditation, we know the mind is going to wander. It's going to do it. That's just what the mind does. And that's not a problem in mindfulness meditation. Okay? Rather, in mindfulness meditation, we expect that to happen. And what we do is we adopt a sort of an attitude towards ourselves when we're meditating of being non-reactive and non-judgmental about whatever comes up. So, we're meditating and we remember that jerk who cut us off on the freeway on the way to work. And then in mindfulness meditation, what we do is we just kind of like a curious anthropologist, like, okay, I'm angry, Or we realize when we're meditating that we're worried about some meeting or some conversation we have to have with our partner or something that's going to be stressful. And again, we just sort of like, that comes up and we go, okay, I'm anxious, right? So what we do is we acknowledge what comes up, but we don't follow it and we don't hold on to it and we don't give it energy to keep it going, okay? So we're just noticing it and acknowledging it, and then we return the attention to the breathing. Okay? And then, as William James said, that working of the return muscle, the muscle of returning our attention from wherever it's gone back to the breathing, that's the muscle we're working on. So if you use an exercise metaphor, that's the muscle we're working on, the return muscle. Okay. So another way of saying this is that in mindfulness meditation, what we do is we kind of locate ourselves in what we might call our observer selves. It's the self that's observing our experience. And in that, what we do is we realize I am not my experience. I feel angry, but I am not anger, okay? Or I feel afraid right now, or I feel hungry, or I'm thinking about X, but I am not X, okay? So mindfulness meditation creates this space, if you will, or disidentification between our observer self and our experience. And we give ourselves permission in meditation to not react. So if something comes up, some feeling I have about my older sister and my relationship with her, which we can talk about later if you want, so if that comes up in meditation, I give myself permission to not react to that, to just notice it and then return my attention to my breathing and let it go, okay? And we give ourselves permission not to judge ourselves or our experience. So instead of, when the thought about my crazy sister comes up, instead of kind of going back to, oh God, she drives me crazy, instead of going into that, I just give myself permission to say, okay, I'm remembering, I'll tell you, Pat is her name. So, okay, so that's what we do, okay? So that's the sort of trying to stay in the present moment, but knowing that stuff is going to come up, and then being non-reactive and non-judgmental. Okay, so that's really what the practice is about. Again, I just wanted to emphasize this element of sort of noticing versus our thoughts and feelings and all that versus following them. It's a kind of a subtle distinction, and so I want to give you a metaphor or two that might help you remember it or kind of get the concept a little bit more deeply into your own mind. So one metaphor is to think about if you've ever gone and sat next to a little river. Okay, so you're sitting next to a river and there's this little patch of the river in front of you where the river is crossing. And what mindfulness meditation is, we decide, okay, I'm going to just focus on this little patch of the river. So we are meditating, okay, and then there's a leaf that comes by. It comes into our awareness. We notice the leaf. Oh, there's a leaf, okay? But the leaf keeps going down. Instead of focusing and following the leaf, we just let it go out of our field of attention, okay? Or think of it as, if you think of it like you're a mountain, okay? And, there's rain and there's snow and there's sleet and ice and all the stuff that male people have to deal with and, fog or whatever, but you're not moved by it. You don't react to it. You're the mountain. You're just there. You're just solid. You're just being there, okay? So it's this idea of you're not dismissing thoughts. You're not using energy to dismiss them or push them away. What you're doing is you're allowing thoughts to come, but you're just letting them go. You're not giving them energy by following them, okay? Okay, but I do want to make a quick clarification, which is when I say that in mindfulness meditation we let our thoughts and feelings go, I'm not suggesting that thoughts and feelings aren't important. What I'm suggesting is that in the meditation practice itself, we don't kind of follow them, work with them, think about them. We do that outside of meditation, okay? But in the meditation practice itself, we just are non-reactive and non-judgmental. Okay, so now I'd like to lead you in a brief meditation. So for that, first of all, if you could just sort of get settled in your chair with your kind of your back straight and your feet, flat on the floor. If possible, have your knees at about a 90-degree angle. It's okay to lean against the back of the chair if you want. It's probably slightly better if you can to just like scoot up a little bit and have your own muscles hold up your back. What you want to do is have your head straight on top of your shoulders. As some of you probably know, our heads weigh something along the order of 12 pounds. And so our body, our physique is designed to support the head without any stress or problem when it's right ahead, up top our shoulders and our back. But when it's there or whether it's kind of a stress. So it's good to have your head right above your shoulders, right kind of on top of your spinal column. You want to have your shoulders relaxed. Okay, you might want to roll your shoulders a little bit to just sort of relax them. And then as far as your arms and hands are concerned, wherever it's comfortable, they can be in your lap, they can be at your side, whatever feels most comfortable is where you want to put them, okay? So then now I'm going to invite you to close your eyes gently. Maybe we'll take a couple of kind of deeper breaths to begin. So breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And breathe in and breathe out. Okay, now I'm just going to encourage you to keep your attention focused on your breathing. Just don't try to change the pace of your breathing. Let your breathing be at whatever pace it would normally be. And just let your mind follow your breathing. Keep your mind focused on your breathing. And if your mind has gone somewhere else, maybe you heard a sound, maybe you had a thought, just gently and without any judgment, just return your attention to your breathing. Just keep your mind, just focus on your breathing, let your mind rest in your breathing. Just keep following your breathing. And if your mind has wandered somewhere else, just you can acknowledge where you've been. You can name it. I was thinking, feeling, remembering, planning. Just after you've named it, just return to the physical experience of your breathing. Okay, I'm going to invite you to leave the meditation now. So you might want to take another breath or two, and then whenever you're ready, just gently open up your eyes. Okay, so I probably should have asked beforehand, but how many people have had some exposure to mindfulness meditation before? If you could raise your hands. Oh, I'm speaking to the people you should be teaching the class. Okay, so a number of you have had experience, which is wonderful. So I wanted to take a minute or two, though, to just elicit from people what their experience was. What like to do is either for you to sort of more, not evaluate what happened, but sort of describe what happened. Or if you want to ask a question, you're welcome to do that. So anyone willing to sort of describe what happened to them during that was about 5 minutes, by the way.
What?
Yeah, that was about 5 minutes. So, yeah, it seemed longer, so that was part of the experience. We think of time as, oh my God, 30 seconds, I can't fit anything in, but actually 5 minutes is kind of a long time if you're quiet.
It seems shorter. It
pardon?
seems shorter.
It seems shorter.
Yeah.
Okay, so time moved quickly for
I
you.
was surprised when you said 5.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting too, because, well, what it clearly means is time is subjective, right? Our sense of time is subjective. So anyone want to share any kind of experience they had describing or raise any questions either way? Yes?
I found that my visualization of breathing had to go up, stay, and down, up, stay, like you could, because you breathe up, and then you stayed at the top, and you went down. So that was the only way I could visualize and stick with it. The down would always be a waterfall.
Okay, so you actually were visualizing your breathing. So usually when, I probably didn't give the instruction correctly, usually what I try to do is get people to just focus on kind of the physical experience, the breath going through your nostrils, your lungs expanding and contracting. But actually visualizing is just fine too, if it works for you. But you did find that there was a distinction between how you felt when your breath was the in-breath and the out-breath, huh? Is that right? Is that what you're saying? Okay. Other experiences or questions? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
I see. I'm
I
sorry.
was obsessing over the results of Susan's study at the beginning, and then I slowly began to make my peace with it in certain ways. It certainly is a lifelong struggling with an argument with that, and that, young company will get there, and so it was actually quite helpful.
Okay.
Go back, I was nervous about the sign in front of me saying that given the results, and I was all like, oh my God, it's horrible discrepancy.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm not hearing exactly everything you're saying.
Sorry, there was a study at the beginning. I don't know if you were here for that.
I'm sorry, I wasn't.
Okay, in which somebody gave very useful analysis about different ranking companies. Anyway, I don't know why I'm bringing huge attention to this, but so anyway, I was obsessing on it, and then I gradually came back again and again, and it found it quite helpful actually for that. So.
Okay, great. So you had the experience of your mind was sort of drawn to, even though you were intending to have it focus on your breath, your mind kept bringing up this thing that had happened earlier today. But you were able to recognize it and then bring your mind back in a way that was not judgmental or whatever. And that response or the capacity to do that is really what we're developing in a mindfulness meditation. That capacity to recognize when I'm kind of off, not where I really want my attention to be, but gently sort of bring it back to where I do want my attention to be. So thank you for that. Other experiences or questions? So I put you all to sleep, did I? Okay, so what I want to do now is briefly talk about, at least this is sort of my own sort of phenomenology, if you will. That's a little bit too grand of a term, but is a description of how mindfulness works in a way. So, because you're all very educated people and again, thoughtful people, and I want to be respectful to you. I don't want to sort of like try to teach you something, but not tell you what the secret is behind it, or what it's really going on. So this is what, at least in my understanding, what's happening in mindfulness meditation, which leads to the much touted benefits that we'll talk about a bit later. Okay, so when we place our attention on our breathing and sort of only acknowledge and notice, but not react or judge what comes up, well, as I said before, we're sort of inhabiting our sort of observer self, and we're creating a space, if you will, metaphorically, between our observer self and our experience, the thoughts, the images, the memories, the desires, whatever else is there. And in mindfulness practice, what we're trying to do is develop this capacity to be present with those feelings, thoughts, and all, but without reacting to them, without being judgmental of ourselves or them. In other words, as I said before, we're not identifying ourselves with our experience, our inner experience. And what happens then, once you're doing it for a while, is it basically slows things down. It slows things down in our life. And as we begin to get better at giving ourselves permission to not react to something, or at least not react right now to do X in response to that, what happens is it frees us up to have some choice in the matter. Because what has happened for most of us, most of the time, is we have lots of automated, almost automatic, lightning quick reactions to all kinds of stimuli. You know, when my sister Pat calls, I get anxious. When I see a homeless person, I feel unsettled. I don't know what I'm going to do. When I see, when I'm walking into the classroom, if the students aren't kind of settled, I might get unsettled. So we have these quick reactions to things. And what mindfulness does is it enables us to sort of break those habitual reactions and create this space where we have some choice about how we want to respond to something versus having our typical normal reaction to it. So for example, so the idea is, in mindfulness, we're giving ourselves permission while we're meditating that if I experience X, I don't have to do Y. I don't have to go there. I can just be with whatever X is, okay? So, for example, and then the thing is, we can carry that skill or that capacity into our daily life experience. So if at the office or somebody says something mean to us, we can begin to register, oh, that hurt. Oh my gosh, that really hurt. But we don't react. There's this space that's created between our experience and what might have been our habitual reaction. Or if I'm hungry, I notice I'm hungry. Okay, but I don't have to eat the first thing that's in front of me. Okay, I give myself permission not to do what the normal reaction or my normal reaction might have been. Okay, or if I'm feeling anxious, again, I give myself permission to not respond to that anxiety right away, right now, in the way that I normally would have done. Okay? So creating this space has all kinds of benefits. It helps us have greater control over attention. It helps us to sort of occupy the present moment. And after all, the present moment is the only time in which we're actually free, when we can actually make decisions. We've already made decisions in the past. That's done. We can't undo it. And the future isn't here yet, so we can't make decisions in the future. It's the present is the only time when we can actually make decisions. So occupying the present moment, which is what mindfulness helps us to try to do, is a way of making us more free and making us more able to choose the responses and the habits that we want to choose, that are going to enable us to be the kind of people we want to be, to live the kind of values we want to live. The other thing it does is it increases self-knowledge. So if you meditate regularly for a time, you begin to realize, oh, my typical thing is I go into the past, and I'm reworking the conversation I had with that coworker or with my, spouse or whatever. Or, I'm the kind of person, I go into the future, and I'm thinking about the next thing, and I'm planning, and I'm anxious about it, or I'm excited about it, or whatever, but I'm thinking about the next thing. So we begin to see what our own habitual patterns of mind and heart and emotion and conversation are as we begin to pay attention. And then that self-knowledge then gives us the that self-knowledge then gives us the capacity to change our habits. Go ahead, what would you like to say?
So this might be a silly, but I'm totally new to meditation. Where your mind goes is sort of thinking about the meditation itself, like, oh, it's been a long time, it's boring. Is that part of the meditation as long as you're not thinking about external things? Or are you supposed to push that out too?
Well, you're supposed to notice it, not push it out, notice it, and then just return to your breathing, okay? So the idea is that the intention in a meditation is, so if I'm going to sit down and meditate for 15 minutes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to intend to sit down and focus on my breathing for 15 minutes, and as things come up, return my attention to my breathing, okay? So it's not uncommon for people to be self-reflective about the meditation itself. And when I teach law students, you know, they end up being very, very judgmental to about themselves initially because they think they're not good at meditation because they have other thoughts that come in. And I have to keep reminding them that what meditation is, or at least mindfulness meditation, is not about achieving a particular state of mind or having a particular experience. Mindfulness meditation, the very subtle but simple goal is really to be in the present moment with whatever is in the present moment. That's all it is, okay? So we acknowledge and we notice what's actually going on in us, whether it's bodily or mentally or whatever, wherever our mind is, and then we let go of it and we bring it back to our breathing. And like I said, the point then is that we can then bring this skill into our daily life because we've kind of created this space between ourself that's making choices and our experience, all right? I don't know if you can see this, but there's that, and I'm dating myself here, but are you familiar with The Matrix, that film a long time ago? Some of you are. Okay, so there was a period in The Matrix or a scene where Neo, the guy who's kind of been constructed or whatever, he's learning how to fight, but he's learning that reality actually is quite plastic, and that he can actually anticipate a bullet coming and sort of get out of the way, or he can do all kinds of things once he has slowed reality down. And that's largely how mindfulness meditation works. It creates this pause between our observer mind and our experience such that we develop some capacity to choose how to respond to something rather than react to it. Okay, so...
So I have a question.
Sure.
So if you're doing mindfulness meditation and you're focusing on your breathing, that pause is a little easier to force because that's what you're doing right that second. I've been waiting my whole life to get that 3-second pause before the stimulus and my immediate response to it. So how do you do it when you're not actually meditating? That's the part I don't get.
Yeah, and we're getting that. So yeah, and it is hard because and part of it is in our kind of hectic, crazy modern day life, and in particularly in legal circles, the assumption is I say X, you say Y right away. There is no pause. There is no time. There is no space. Okay. What we do is we begin to have the ego strength to pause.
So it comes from, if you do enough of this, it will come to you in your regular life as well.
Yes, right. It transfers over. If in my meditation, I begin to be able to be comfortable and at peace, if you will, with the fact that, okay, I'm feeling anxiety right now, but that doesn't mean I have to rush out and do something, or I'm feeling sad right now. That doesn't mean I need to, call my friend or have a drink or something. I'm feeling, what we do is we develop really, believe me, a resiliency and a deeper capacity to be present to whatever we're experiencing. And I think you will find, if anybody tries it, or those who have, you will find that we actually have a greater capacity to just be with pain, suffering, anxiety than actually we expect. We don't have to run away from it as quickly as we think we do. And similarly, in social situations, some people, the other person might feel awkward if when they make a demand of you, you're just sort of like, okay, let me think about that. They might be awkward. They might feel like, what am I supposed to do here while you're thinking? But that's okay. There's no universal law in the universe that says everybody has to respond to everything immediately when it's presented to them, otherwise they lose all opportunity to ever respond. That isn't a rule, really. But we create that rule for ourselves, but we can liberate ourselves from that rule. And when we do, there's a lot more that can happen. Yeah.
Tim, I just wanted to raise the point too that a lot of this is about being pretty forgiving with yourself. And I try to meditate. My husband's an executive coach, and he's like, you gotta meditate every day. And I sometimes do and sometimes don't. And sometimes I do have that moment when I get an email and I want to respond right away, but I'm like, you know what? I'm going to sit with this. I'm going to sit with this for a couple hours. But it also doesn't always work. I mean, there are
Emails
times.
are fine.
There are times when it's filthy, and I'm like, gee, where to go? Where'd my mindfulness go? But I think one of the things is just to be self-forgiving and realize the practice is not about achieving this perfect self-control. But sometimes it can give you just enough pause in really critical moments. Not all the time, but enough to kind of make your life a little better and less stressful.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And it's like everything else. It's a practice. You develop and you get better at it. Yes?
One more question.
One more?
We're almost done.
Okay, so let's see. Do I have till 20 up or am I done? Oh, am I done?
Yeah.
Oh,
One
I'm
more
sorry. Shoot, I'm sorry. I didn't do it on my time well. I was actually I had 3 particular examples of what I believe to be law librarians or librarians' experiences where I was going to bring up and how it worked. One of them was responding to an email or phone. So in 1 more minute. So what you could do is when that phone rings, okay, so I know that a lot of you are a lot of us who are not librarians think you have these idyllic lives in this quiet room, and we're surrounded by books, and we all love books. It's like, how could your life be any better? But I know you actually have stressful lives and competition and difficulty and all that. So it's really about once you've developed a practice, when the phone rings, you can it'll ring for at least 3 or 4 rings, right, before it goes to voicemail. You can actually take a breath, kind of compose yourself, pick up the phone, and basically what mindfulness does, it doesn't solve your problems automatically. What it does is it enables you to be in a posture for life to sort of deal with and expect and work with problems. And then it gives you some skills on how to deal with those problems. That was the part about the hype that I don't like about mindfulness. Sometimes they make it think like, oh, it's going to be great. It's like a wonder drug, It's not. It takes practice, but the more you do it, the more you have this composure, which, when you get that call, the attorney is demanding something, or the law student or the patron is demanding something, you can just say, okay, ask a few more questions, say, I need to think about this, I'll get back to you, whatever. You can be much more in control of the situation in a way that's not disrespectful, but where you're not reacting to it. Okay, so I apologize that I didn't use my time as well as I'd like. I wasn't as mindful as I should. But anyway, thank you very much. And if anybody-